And I think we're live. Hello, everybody. How are you? Nice to see you here. My name is Jamie Keddy. I'm the founder of LessonStream, a community of teachers with a passion for using story and storytelling in the classroom. And by story, we get quite broad. You know, stories includes images and especially in this case, photographs. Photographs with a strong narrative. And that's what this is all about. Could you do me a big favor? Could you say hello? Let me know that you can see me and hear me. Oh, there's Jana. Well, you said you can see my portrait photo, but can you hear me and see me live, coming in live from Barcelona? If you're watching this in the future, I hope you're having a nice day. If you'd like me to notify you of the next LessonStream live before we go live, there's a link below that will let you sign up for my newspaper and also get a free lesson plan. So yes, waiting for somebody to let us. There's a delay. There's always about, I don't know, a 15-second delay. So what you're seeing right now is me from 15 seconds ago. So I'm actually 15 seconds older than, it's like the moon. You know, when you look at the moon is actually, it's what you see is the moon 3 seconds ago, I think. It's just like that, except I'm probably physically closer to you right now than the moon. That's the difference. Great. Look, we got Ter there. Hello from Mexico City. And you can hear me and you can see me, I assume. Great. That means we can start. Do you like my my slide there? I quite like it. Hi, Chris. Lovely to see you. Thank you. Looking good too. I put on a shirt especially. So this is I spent some time, possibly some might say too long, preparing these cover slides. That's the one you see right there. And I was preparing this in my local cafe, not far away from here. And Louisa said to me, "What's that, Jamie?" And I said, "Well, doesn't that speak for itself? Those are the negatives of, you know, a photo shoot that one might take, or rather one might have taken in the old days." And she said, "But that's video, is it not?" And she's quite young, I should point out. I think this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with young people that don't understand the basic principles of taking photographs in the days before digital photography. And isn't that a terrible, terrible thing? And so look what I've got. I went underneath my bed, which is never a safe place. And I've got some negatives here. This is what we called them, just in case there's any young people here, just in case there are any young people present, which is possible, I guess. But this is what we call a negative. It's not to say that it's a whole negative vibe, but the negative, you have to shine the light through that onto the photographic paper and blah, blah, blah. Is there anybody here amongst us who considers themselves to be both young and didn't know what this was until a few seconds ago? I'd be surprised if there are, because, you know, I think we're all, if you're young, you're still worldly. But that's how we used to take photographs, using film. And sometimes we would talk about if they turn out. For example, you'd say, I'll give you one of these photographs if it turns out, which is a bizarre thing to say, isn't it? If it turns out, you'd take the photographs, you'd take it to the roll of film to the chemists, they would develop it, you'd get your photographs back, you'd look through them and you go, I thought they were going to be better than that. And then sometimes you'd put the best ones in an album, and other times you'd put them in a shoebox and put the box under your bed, which is what I did. Yes. So hello, David. Nice to see you here. And that's David W. In Ulrike. Wow, my hometown. And David, another David. Nice to see you, David. And John, our resident poet. Hi, John, in Bournemouth. And that's Marila. Is that how I pronounce your name? In Budapest. Nice to see you. And Oksana, that's in Slovenia. Great to see you, Oksana. Nice to see some familiar faces, and we've got some teachers here who are actually in the LessonStream community. I know who you are, and you know who you are. So let me just explain. I think that maybe my personal introduction to humanist photography, which is what this is all about, goes back to probably about 10 years ago. And I have to thank my mum for this. I have to thank my mum for many things. But one of those things is a book that she bought me for my birthday, I think. And I really, really can't recommend this enough. If you're looking for a nice gift for somebody, buy them a book like this one. And this is Henri Cartier-Bresson, who is French and is often regarded as the pioneer of humanist photography. He is also a pioneer of photojournalism. Some people describe him as a street photographer. There's differences between these things, but we're not going to worry about that for this session. But look at this front cover. I mean, isn't that a lovely, lovely photograph? You've got this, he's a working man coming back to his family. We can't see his face, but I'm absolutely sure that he's smiling. And why wouldn't he be? Because there's his family, his new chubby baby. That's his wife with her arms wrapped around the chubby baby looking up at his daddy, smiling, mummy looking down at the baby, smiling. Maybe that's his mum, maybe that's his mother-in-law, and they're all looking up at him, and life is good. And there's a dog poking its nose through their legs. And what I love most of all about this picture is this down here, the second dog, which to me just completes the composition so well. This dog, I mean, as if the family is not enough, the dog is just looking up at his master with his air of admiration, and its mouth is ajar. You know, his mouth is half open. And I think maybe the dog is doing that thing, or is just about to do that thing that dogs do, which is a half bark. Do you know what I mean by a half bark? They don't go ruff, they go ruff, ruff, ruff. The sort of half bark of appreciation. And can you see the dog there just getting ready for a half bark? and this is a book of people. It's all about people. It's a book of people, of life and love and tragedy. Henri Cartier-Bresson, I mean, it's very European-centric, because the School of Humanist Photography, which is all about chasing images of real people doing real things in real environments, especially the street, is European, but especially France in the 1930s is where it all started. And but Henri Cartier-Bresson was very well travelled. This book is actually called Europeans, but only Cartier-Bresson made it to other parts of the world and did a great job in documenting the lives of people and kind of celebrating the shared human condition, which is what it's all about. And you know, 1930s, the world was only a few years past the First World War. You know, the horrors of war had really disturbed the world. And so there was this kind of attempt, I suppose, whether it was deliberate or not, to kind of demonstrate and to celebrate the idea that as human beings, there's more that we have in common than otherwise. We have more in common than differences. And I think that's the beauty of what this is all about. And in the classroom, this is one of the reasons why humanist photography can be such an enriching thing, you know. A lot of teachers ask how we can deal with empathy. It's one of these questions that quite often comes through. How do we deal with empathy? And I always think that story is the answer, at least bringing in other people's stories into your classroom. And this is what this is all about. You know, photographs are other people's stories. And so this is, for me, my introduction to humanist photography, thanks to my mum. And I think that maybe my opinion is that I really, really love Cartier-Bresson. But I think that maybe the next photographer I'm going to mention is maybe more accessible. You might disagree with that, but book number 2. This is Robert Doisneau. Or if you want me to do a French accent, Robert Doisneau. Robert Doisneau or Robert Doisneau. And I think that maybe Doisneau is more accessible than Cartier-Bresson, but that's up to you to decide. Now, what's happened here, you see, in the LessonStream membership, we've just started to do a mini course on picture telling, which is all about using stories from photographs or images, art. And just a few months ago, kind of coincidentally, a little gallery here in Barcelona on Carrer Diputación, if you know Barcelona, called Photo Nostrum, had a Robert Doisneau exhibition. And I passed it just by chance, thinking, oh, fantastic. One of my favorite photographers. And in fact, there was one photograph in particular by this man, Doisneau, that I've been wanting to use for a lesson plan for a number of years. It's a photograph I used to use in my teaching quite a bit. And I thought this would be fantastic if the photograph that I'm talking about that you haven't seen yet was on display in this exhibition. And so I paid to go into the exhibition, and I have to say thank you to Photo Nostrum for being, progressive and letting people like me take photographs of the photographs. So let me show you some of the photographs that were on display here. Again, these are humanist images. This is great, isn't it? I love this. This is quite an iconic photograph of Doisneau, this elderly gentleman that's just gone onto the streets of Paris for a walk, taking his big shaggy dog there that's sitting underneath the chair, and he's got his cigarette and he's got a glass of wine, and nothing else matters. I wonder if he's married. I wonder if he's told his wife that he won't be long. I wonder if she knows or if she approves. I guess she does, but who knows? Maybe not. Or maybe he's not married, or maybe he's widowed. Who's to say? Who's to say? I should have shown you a closer up one. That's a nice shaggy dog. Don't you love a shaggy dog? How about this one? Doisneau took a lot of photographs in classrooms and captured some fantastic images of kids. I mean, look at this one here. Isn't that fantastic? This is a photograph of concentration, isn't it? This little boy who's just the eyes just looking up and to the side as if he's trying to work out the answer to an arithmetic problem or retrieve a piece of information that he may or may not know, something maybe the teacher told him yesterday. Isn't that great? Or here, how about this one here? This is a great picture, isn't it? This is the back of the class. The back of the class. And look at these three boys here. I think maybe boredom is a factor of this story here. And you got these two lads on the left here looking forward with their arms crossed, like model students almost. But this little one, he's so tiny, isn't he? Look at all that space, looking up, twisting his neck to look up at that clock on the classroom wall, probably wanting to know what time it is, because I think it's almost lunchtime, and that's what he's looking forward to. I hope he doesn't get caught by the teacher. This book, some great ones. I mean, this picture here is also in the book. There's the one I mentioned before. But look at this one. This little kid exploring his friend's mouth. Who knows what's going on there? You can only guess, can't you? But isn't that great? And one of the questions then is, okay, this is great material. This is fantastic material. When I think of material for teaching, this is the sort of thing that comes to mind. But what do you do with it? How can you use it? And that's what we're going to talk about. There's this mantra that I have that if you've ever been in one of my courses, you'll hear me say, and you'll hear me say it a lot, and you'll probably go, oh, not again. No. And the mantra is, there is no image without a text, and there is no text without an image. No image without a text, no text without an image. In language teaching, this starts off in a very basic principle, which could be a flashcard. I mean, imagine the teacher holding up a flashcard with a picture of an apple, holding it up, and everybody's got to say what they see, and the answer is that it's an apple. And you turn that flashcard around, on the back there is that word apple. No image without a text, no text without an image. It's a beautiful marriage between words and pictures. And when you're in a gallery, when you're in an art gallery or a photography gallery, that becomes kind of very much a thing, doesn't it? No image without a text. Because when you see any piece of art or any exhibit or any artifact, or in this case, any photograph, if you're like me, you'll spend a few seconds looking at it, and then immediately you'll be looking at that little text, that little piece of paper down somewhere, maybe bottom left or bottom right, or depending where it is, and you'll scan for that, and then you'll read it. That's the supporting text. And there's a great example of this at this exhibition. If you only know, or if you only knew one of Doisneau's photographs before today, I'm going to guess it would be this one. Am I right? This is almost without a doubt Doisneau's most famous image. And it's a couple kissing somewhere near l'Hôtel de Ville in Paris. And you've seen it before, and it's appeared on many posters. I think I saw it when I was a student. I've seen it many times. I've seen it on the cover of books. I've probably seen it too many times, but you see it has a central place here because it is Doisneau's most famous image. And what was very interesting here is when I was in the gallery, and I looked around for that little supporting text, no image without a text, and I found it, and I read it, and I learned something about this picture. And let me show you what I discovered. I discovered that unlike most of Robert Doisneau's other pictures, let me read this to you. Perhaps the most famous photograph of his career is Le Baiser de l'Hôtel de Ville. It was taken in 1950 and caused him much stress toward the end of his life. Originally published in Life magazine, it was not until 30 years after it was first released that it became a huge success as a poster, reproduced all over the world. Now, many couples saw themselves in the image, and indeed, one such couple took Doisneau to court in 1993, claiming to be the couple in the image and wanting compensation for being captured without their knowledge. And it was then that Doisneau was forced to admit that the image had been staged. In other words, it had been set up, and that he had approached a young couple on the street and asked them to pose for him. He said, "I would never dare to photograph people like that, lovers kissing the street." Well, those lovers are very rarely legitimate. They're probably doing something they shouldn't be. They're probably with somebody they should not be with, in other words. And so the case was dropped. And I wonder what you think about that. I think that's quite interesting. Would you have, or did you ever consider that this photograph was set up, that this photograph was staged? And now that you know that it was staged, how do you feel about it? And what's very interesting about that is that this book, in fact, includes this photograph and the supporting text. Remember, no image without a text, no text without an image. The supporting text tells a slightly different story, as told by the photographer's daughter, I think. I assumed it was his daughter. Maybe it's his son, but I think it's his daughter. And she talks about how her father actually created this image. And it contradicts some of what you just read. According to her, he actually hired a young couple from an acting school in Paris. So they were actors, and the three of them, I assume the three of them, maybe four of them, went all around Paris for one day, taking photographs in different locations. And this is the one that Doisneau liked best, which is interesting, isn't it? How stories and recollections and personal recollections and stories change with every telling, or at least they can do, and they have done in this case. So yeah, you know, the idea here is the photographer, or Doisneau in any case, and the humanist idea is to capture truthful images, which raises a question. The fact that this photograph was set up, does that mean it is not truthful? I don't know if I would want to assume that it's not, but maybe that's a question for another time. Now, in the story course, in the LessonStream story course, we've been looking at an idea that, as we said, that there is no image without a text, and there is no text without an image. And we've just looked at this idea that the text can come from the museum or the gallery wall, or in this case, the supporting text in the book. We've got the photographs, and we've got the supporting texts beside them. But that's not the only place that the texts can come from. And I often use an idea that I refer to in the course, the LessonStream story course, as the three perspectives. And the three perspectives look like this. Perspective number one is what you see. Perspective number two is what you think. And perspective number four is what you know. So let's look at the front cover of this book for an example. And let's just talk about the first perspective, what you see. And what you see, another way to refer to this would be the visual text. So it's the elements of the image, the different things, people, places, objects in the photograph that we can then put into words. So we've got a gutter here, we've got a pavement, we've got a curb, we've got a road, we've got a little stream of water running through the gutter. We've got a child. You have to look carefully and decide whether it's a little boy or a little girl. I actually assumed it was a little girl for a long time, and it wasn't until recently, when I looked more closely, realized it's a little boy. So it's a little boy. There's also a car in the background. There's a lot of space going on. This little boy is actually standing quite far away from the camera, which is unusual. Usually the subject will fill the frame, but not in this case. And the fact that he's far away from the camera it kind of draws attention to the fact that he's quite small, but also it draws attention to his environment, all the space around him, his new world. So this is really working at the first perspective, what you see. And in describing this photograph, and this really is what we're working with here, descriptions, this is possibly the most fundamental source of text or language that we can get from the image. Quite simply, it's putting that into words. And this is the very first place to start with. And if we're using photographs in the classroom, that first perspective, what you see, of course, can come from the teacher, or it can come from the students. I feel that image descriptions kind of get a bad press. They don't sound very sexy, do they? Image descriptions. It's a bit, but an image description, taking your time to look and see and think and putting that into words. Ideally, I would say taking the time to write it down can be a very, very rewarding process. And in starting off as the teacher, if you show your students the kind of what you can get out of an image that you love, then you're providing not just the inspiration, but also a model text for them to do the same. Now, once you start to put that into words, once you start to describe an image working in this first perspective, what you see, very gradually, but also seamlessly, you move into the second perspective, which is what you think. And this is really often a kind of neglected perspective for teachers. I think often we regard what we do as language teachers, too often it's about the objective. It's what can be said to be true or false, box ticking, multiple choices, exams. And so this is often the level or the perspective that's forgotten. So what you think, what you think about this is maybe the affective. So if the first perspective, what you see, is all about the visual text, the second is the affective, putting into words the kind of activity that goes on here in response to what you see. So perhaps there could be maybe personal connections. And one of the reasons I love this photograph is if you look at this little boy, he's just in a state of delight seeing this little stream of water. And I think one of the reasons I love this image so much is when I was a child, I used to have a fascination for water as well. Maybe children do. A lot of children have this fascination for water, don't they? I was famous for often falling in, not just to puddles, but to streams and even rivers and ponds. And it'd be, oh my God, Jamie's fallen in again, and I would be crying because I was wet. And more often than not, it would kind of ruin the day. And so I think it's quite interesting that this little boy, although he's fascinated in the water, he seems to kind of be taking a distance, keeping a distance from it, doesn't he? He's bending down to look at it, but he's keeping a slightly safe distance. And nothing's going to happen, but maybe in the next moment after this photograph was taken, maybe he moves towards the water. Maybe he does step into it and starts to jump up and down and keep making a splash. This is the narrative that I'm constructing, the imaginary narrative that I'm constructing in response to this image. Now, a great way to do this in the language classroom, and we use this a lot in LessonStream in the course and also in the lesson plans, is to use one of my favorite verbs, which is wonder. So students, all they have to do is to create or write a number of sentences, each beginning with I wonder. And one of the great things about that verb is that it collocates and connects with the question words. I wonder where, I wonder when, I wonder why, I wonder which, I wonder how many, I wonder how often, I wonder how much. Also, I wonder whether, I wonder if. And so once you've got that written on the board, ask students to try and write a question for each of those sentence starters. So I wonder when this photograph was taken. I wonder if the photograph was staged or set up at all. I wonder who this little boy was. I wonder what he did with his life. I wonder where his parents are. I wonder if he jumped into the little stream of water after the photograph was taken. I wonder when this photograph was taken. So this is a great way to get students engaged with an image like this and produce language from it, all coming from the second perspective, which is what you think. And the third perspective is about what you know. But we could change this actually. We could change the wording from what you know to what you can find out. We just saw this example of this photograph, Doisneau's most famous photograph of the kiss. And that piece of supporting text was about this third perspective, what you know or what you can find out. And in the case of this photograph, I've actually spent some time trying to find out about it, but really I've not been able to find out anything about it other than the fact that it was taken by Doisneau and the year was 1934. And interestingly, when I heard that, when it was taken in 1934, for some reason, I connected that with an event in Europe, in Germany, a certain political party, or a certain party. Let's not call them political because they didn't stay political. A certain party got democratically elected in Germany that same year, and within 5 years, the world kind of descended again into war, the most horrific war that we've ever seen. And so I wonder, how this little boy's life was affected, living in Paris. What happened? What happened to his family? What happened to him? How was he affected by it? So there's not much we can use for this image for that third perspective. What I would say the value of this one, unless you can do better than me and find out what more about it, I would say the value for this image is those first two perspectives, what you see and what you think. Hello, Ellie from Bulgaria. Nice to see you. And Christina, nice way to conduct the class using images. I think you're saying using photographs of this type. One thing I would suggest that you do, if you're interested in using photographs like these, I love photography books. I've got a lot of them over there on my shelf, and this is my new favorite one. You can, as a teacher, Google these images and find the best quality versions you can get of them. Then just start to make prints, make hard copies. Take into the classroom 20 hard copies of photographs like this. And then I would start by presenting one or two of your own, just in the way that I've done. Talk about it, describe it, put into words the activity, the mental activity, the things you think about, the I wonder sentences, the connections you make with it, and something structured, because if what you want ultimately is a text, a short text that serves as a model, because what you want then is for students to do the same. Then give them a choice. They've got some agency here. You spread the images around. Students have got to find one that they like, that they connect with, choose it, and then they're going to do the same. And that's as simple as that, with a nice selection of humanist photographs. There's so much you could do with them in the classroom. And this is something I do myself when I go to NIL, Norwich Institute for Language Education in the UK every summer, and teach on my video, image and story course. And there's a unit, a section in the course all about using images. And this is one of the things that we do. Hello there, Kachatur from Georgia. Nice to see you here. You got a Union Jack flag there. That's not a Georgian flag. I know what the Georgian flag looks like, unless my eyesight is really bad. Yes, one thing you might notice that I've been doing here, that I do a lot, is I withhold the image. And this is something I love to do. I love to withhold the images because I call this picture telling, and I've made a little video on YouTube in which I picture tell this image on the front of the book. I'll include the link below. And the idea about picture telling, about withholding the image, about the teacher can see the image, but students can't, is that you're forced to listen. You're forced to pay attention to the language. We said there is no image without a text, and this is another great illustration of this. You've got the image in front of you, the teacher, you can see it, students cannot, but they know that it's there. And once you start to talk about it, describe it, students have got no choice, but they have to listen. They have to focus on the text. The image is coming afterwards, but in the meantime, it's all about the language. And the other great thing about it is the curiosity factor. You're exploiting a really powerful teacher-student information gap, and you can go over the text, the picture telling text, 2 or 3 times. And students have got to try and visualize the image according to your description. Eventually, you show them the image, and you can actually go back to the text. So you're getting the text delivered by the teacher, then you've got the image, then you revisit the text. So it's like a sandwich, text, image, text. And then you've got the model for students. It's their turn to do the same. And we've got a lot of lesson plans in the LessonStream membership, which actually exploit this technique, which is picture telling. And for the remainder of this session, I'm going to share with you a technique. I should have said, so I'm going to share with you a lesson plan, an activity, a recent one from LessonStream, which makes use of this technique, which is picture telling. And Kat Chatur says it is a Georgian flag. In that case, it's my eyesight. Yes, I've just zoomed in and now I see it now. There's no blue. It's all, yeah, exactly. Yes. Hello, Hannah. Lovely to see you. So there's a few of you. Hannah is one of them, and we've got David and Chris present. And we've got a few Georgian teachers in the membership as well. Perhaps you know this. Perhaps you know this activity. It's called the Pont des Arts, which is a very famous bridge in Paris. It's all about Paris today. A very famous bridge in Paris. And I wonder if we have anyone here present with us who's either from Paris or based in Paris. And because that's where this activity starts, on the Pont des Arts. And just in case you'd like to see a picture of the Pont des Arts, here it is, right here. This is what it looks like. Actually, this is not what it looks like today. Something about the Pont des Arts has changed. This photograph, I think, was taken around 2004, although I'm guessing here. I wonder if any of you can guess, or maybe you know, or maybe you can make an educated, informed guess. What's different about the Pont des Arts today? When I show you a photograph of the Pont des Arts today, you will see that there's something different about it. And it's not the fact that there's more people with mobile phones, although you could say that, but that's not the thing I'm thinking about. Anna, nice to see you here. Another aficionado of photography. And in fact, if this photograph was taken in 2004, then the thing that I'm talking about, the change that happened, started around that year. In fact, there's a clue in the photograph. I know there's a time delay, so I'm giving you some time to answer the question. And I'm going to give you 3 more seconds. Exactly, David got it. The Padlock Bridge. This is the Padlock Bridge in Paris. It's not the only one. David, have you ever left a padlock? Or sometimes they're called love locks, aren't they? The idea is that lovers on the bridge, they take a padlock, they attach it to the side of the bridge in this case. In fact, you can see there's a few love locks actually on the side of this bridge here already. And then once it's locked, they ceremoniously throw the key into the river below, and that is a gesture, a symbolic gesture, which means that their love will last forever, or at least as long as the padlock stays on the side of the bridge. And this may sound beautiful and romantic, but by 2014, I think, and this is all in the lesson plan, this is what we were dealing with. And it's a great question, I think. What do you think of this? Is it, how romantic is it? or how problematic is it? Assuming that we're looking at a sort of continuum here, or maybe not, maybe these two ideas are not mutually incompatible, I don't know. But for you, is this more problematic than romantic, or is it more romantic than problematic? Because personally, I think this is an eyesore. I don't like it. I think that, I just think it's, I think it looks bad. And I wouldn't feel bad about sharing this opinion in the class, because I know there's a lot of students who would disagree. So I'm kind of provoking them. And I'm not the sort of person that would do this. That's not to say that I'm not romantic, but I would not express my romance in this way. I think it's an illustration that human beings are sheep. And again, I'm being provocative here. And David says that he's not locked a love lock on a bridge yet. But by, I think it was 2014, this was a problem. It was starting to cause structural damage to the bridge, the Pont des Arts. And so I think that year, 2014, 2015, the love locks were removed from the Pont des Arts, and they were replaced with love lock proof sides. So you can see these glass sides of the bridge, which you can see through, but you can't attach love locks. And I think, yes, get rid of the love locks. And interestingly, very interestingly, that year that this happened, the very month that the love locks were removed, interestingly, but perhaps not surprisingly, there was an increase in the number of divorces in France. I just made that part up, but I wouldn't be surprised, would you? By the way, it was estimated there was 1,750,000 love locks, but by the time they were removed, 1 million supposedly. And so, yeah, I don't know what they did with them. What did they do with them? And what about all the keys? Did they get eaten by the fish? Who's to say? Who's to say? Anyway, I'm going to turn to a photograph here in the book. The photograph, I think, on page 90-something. Yes, it's right here. And I'm going to, and this is a photograph in the book, a photograph by Robert Doisneau. And this photograph was taken on the Pont des Arts. And I told you there was a photograph that I wanted to see, a photograph that I really, really wanted to see in the exhibition here in Barcelona. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of the photographs on display. And that's actually why I bought this book. And I was so happy when I found that the photograph was in this book, because I had no idea if it would be. And it is. And it's a photograph that was taken on the Pont des Arts, as I said. And the photograph was taken in 1953 on the Pont des Arts. So there is not a single love lock in sight, I am very happy to say. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to describe to you the scene on the bridge at the exact moment when the photograph was taken. All right. So I'm going to describe to you, and all you have to do is listen, the scene on the bridge at the exact moment the photograph was taken. So imagine this, picture the scene. It's 1953. There's not a love lock in sight. And we're on the Pont des Arts. And it's a lazy autumn day with a gentle grey sky. And the trees along the River Seine are bare. In other words, they have no leaves, and delicate. At least they look delicate to me. Now, on the bridge, there are two artists at work. And it's interesting because as I look at this, well, I would love to know if these artists know each other. So on the bridge, there are two artists at work, a photographer and a painter. Yeah, and I wonder if they know each other. Perhaps they do, or perhaps they've never met. And the painter is standing in front of an easel, and he is painting the view from the bridge. The photographer is capturing the scene on the bridge. He's pointing his camera at the painter. Now, in the space between them, there is a curious passerby. Now, he's stopped for just a moment to inspect the painter's work. And he's got his hands behind his back, and he's holding a chain. It's actually a dog lead. And he's leaning to the side. He's trying to have a discreet look over the painter's shoulder. And yes, he's holding a dog lead, a dog chain. And on the other end of the lead, on the other end of the dog chain, his fox terrier, his inquisitive fox terrier. I wonder if you know what a fox terrier dog looks like. And the little terrier appears uninterested in the painter, uninterested in the painter's work. She's looking in the opposite direction. She is looking straight at the photographer, almost staring at the photographer. I think she's more interested in the photographer. Now, that was the scene on the bridge at the moment the photograph was taken. Let me just talk you through that one more time, okay? So this is the scene on the bridge at the moment the photograph was taken. So imagine the scene, 1953 on the Pont des Arts, not a lovelock in sight. A lazy autumn day with a gentle grey sky. The trees along the Seine are bare, no leaves, and in my mind they look delicate. Now, on the bridge, there are two artists at work, a painter and a photographer. Perhaps they know each other, or perhaps they have never met. Who's to say? Who's to say? Now, the painter is standing in front of an easel. He is painting the view from the bridge. The photographer is capturing the scene on the bridge, and he is pointing his camera at the painter. In the space between them, there is a curious passerby. The curious passerby has stopped for just a moment to inspect the painter's work. His hands are behind his back, and he's leaning to the side, trying to have a discreet look over the artist's shoulder, trying to steal a look at the artist's work. And he's holding a dog lead or a dog chain. On the other end of the dog lead, on the other end of the dog chain, is the curious passerby's inquisitive fox terrier. I love the word inquisitive, meaning asking questions. And the little terrier appears uninterested in the painter, uninterested in the painter's work. She is looking in the opposite direction. She is looking at the photographer. She's staring directly at him. Now, that was the scene on the bridge the moment the photograph was taken. And the task for your students is for them to get out their pens or get out their pencils and just make a very quick, a very rough sketch of the scene on the bridge as they imagine it according to the description that you gave them. And let me show you an example of a sketch which came out of this activity. You encourage your students to do rough sketches. We're not looking for works of art. We're looking for very rough, very quick sketches, not like this one, which was done by my father, who's an architect and quite a good artist, don't you think? And he did this after listening to my description of the scene on the bridge at the moment the photograph was taken. But one thing is very strange. He drew the curious passerby, but he didn't draw the dog. For some strange reason, the dog has transformed or shape-shifted into a human being. There's no dog lead, There's no dog chain, just another human being staring at the photographer. And we don't know why that happened. We've got no idea why that happened. But I wonder how similar or how different this image is to yours. So in this picture, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 human beings in the foreground of this photograph. There's a few others in the background, but sorry, in the sketch, I should have said. And I just want, and in a moment, I'm going to show you the photograph, okay? Which I'm looking at right here. And before I do, I want you to tell me, type into the chat, how many human beings do you think you will see in the foreground of the photograph that I'm going to show you? How many human beings do you think you will see in the photograph that I'm going to show you? In the foreground, we're talking, okay? So in this case, there are 4 human beings in the foreground. There's a few in the background. How many human beings do you expect to see in the foreground of the photograph that I'm going to show you? I'm just waiting for the ambulance to pass by. Could you hear that? Living in the busiest street in Barcelona, Parallel, ambulances are a big part of my life. I hear them too often, back and forth. And it's always when I record a video. Whenever I'm going to record a video, the ambulances go by. So, okay, Creative Classroom has said 4. David has said 2. David M has said 2. David W has said 3. Hannah has said 0. Hannah, I'd love you to elaborate. How can there be 0 human beings in the photograph that I'm about to show you? Lucique has said 2. Jana has said 3. So David W has said 3. Now, I've done this activity a number of times, and very rarely does anyone ever say 0 or 4. Creative Classroom, I'd love to know how you got 4. So please feel free to let us know. So it's usually either 2 or 3. Most people will say 3. If I'm going to use my own experience here, it's usually about 75% of people will say 3. But in the photograph that I'm about to show you, there are only 2. Thinking emoji here. Thinking emoji. There are only 2. How can this be? Hannah, it was a mistake. Of course, because you did actually then change it to 2. So if you said 2, then you got the right answer. Now, I was very, very careful. And if you don't believe me, you can watch the recording of this video, because I didn't say ever that I was describing the photograph. I said to you several times, very, very clearly, I said it about 5 times, that I was describing the scene on the bridge, the moment when the photograph was taken. And of course, the photographer does not appear in his own photograph, does he? So I described the scene on the bridge, the moment when the photograph was taken. So the photographer does not appear in his own photograph, and so there are only 2 people in the image. The painter painting the scene on the bridge, and the curious passerby. And this, as I mentioned, was an activity that I did quite a few times a number of years ago. And so when I saw this Robert Doisneau exhibition, I really wanted to go in there and find the photograph, maybe make a little video about it. But unfortunately, it was not one of the photographs on display. But I bought this book and I made a video, and I uploaded this lesson plan in the LessonStream membership. And in fact, it's one of 2 lesson plans that you can get instant access to. I say using Humanist photographs. These are 2 of 150 lesson plans that you get instant access to when you join the LessonStream membership. Now, bear with me because we're not quite finished. We're not quite finished because something very interesting happened. Because when I started to write up this lesson plan, the one called Pont des Arts, and I started to explore the image, I discovered something quite interesting. And this actually finds its way into part 2 of the lesson plan, which is all included. And it's a little quiz. So students have seen the image, students have seen the photograph, you've given them some time to look at it, to appreciate it, to enjoy it, to ask them their opinions about it. Do they like it? Maybe create some I wonder sentences about it. And then we've got a little, it's 5 sentences. 5 sentences about the photograph. Students have got to get into pairs or little groups, and all they've got to do is decide whether or not they agree or disagree with the 5 sentences, which are as follows. Sentence number 1, there are 2 people in the photograph. There are 2 people in the photograph. You can decide whether or not you agree or disagree. If you decide to leave your ideas in the chat, precede them with number 1 so that we know which sentence you're referring to. So number 1, there are 2 people in the photograph. Agree or disagree. Number 2, the photographer and the painter don't know each other. So we're using here as a resource what you think. This is not objective. This is your imaginary narrative. So agree or disagree. The photographer and the painter don't know each other. That's number 2. Agree or disagree. Number 3, the painter is smoking a pipe. Ah, how closely did you look? Or maybe he is smoking a pipe, but we can't see it. Who's to say? Well, I'm to say. Number 4, the painter is painting the view from the bridge. Well, I told you that, didn't I? So it must be true. Or is it? And finally, number 5, the curious passerby is in his 20s. The curious passerby is in his 20s. Actually, that's not the last one. I think that's number 4. I think I've got confused. There's one more. The photograph was staged. The photograph was set up. And students have got to decide in pairs or small groups whether they agree or disagree with these 5 statements, then have a mini discussion for each of them before you show students the photograph, and then you go back to the photograph. And I'm going to show it to you. So in fact, there's a number of things here. I don't think you can see any other people in the picture, can you? So maybe there are only 2 human beings on the bridge, and we still don't know if the photographer and the painter know each other. We don't know if the painter's smoking a pipe, because he might be, but he's got his back to us. We don't know if they know each other, of course. We still don't know if they're staged. But if you looked carefully, you might have noticed that, in fact, I made an assumption. And the assumption was that the painter is painting the view from the bridge. I wonder if you noticed that that's not actually the case. The painter is painting something quite different, something quite strange. And I didn't know this until I bought this book and read the supporting text. The supporting text beside this photograph, which becomes a part of the lesson plan. This text is a perfect text for a dictogloss. And it's very short. And I've rewritten the text in the book. I've adapted it. And this is what it looks like. This is what it says. It says, and these are Robert Doisneau's adapted words. So this is the story. A group of us had been in a cafe on the Rue de Seine, and we were all a bit drunk. There was a painter and a woman with us. The painter was called Daniel Pipard, and he was going to paint the woman on the Pont des Arts. I suggested that he paint her in the nude to see how passers-by would react. So unlike my other photographs, this one was staged. And I thought, WTH, WTH, all these years I've been familiar with this photograph, I had never, ever thought to explore it to the detail that it requires to see that, in fact, can you see that? That he is not painting the view from the bridge, he is painting a person, a figure, a nude. And if you look carefully, you can just see that there is a foot coming out beside Daniel Pipard, the artist's leg. Can you see that? So apparently there is a third person on the bridge here, although we can't see her. And maybe that's a good thing because apparently she is naked, which makes me wonder, is this kind of thing legal in Paris in 1953? Was it okay to be naked in a public place on the Pont des Arts? Maybe there was a special clause that it was okay to be naked as long as you're being painted by a professional artist. I have no idea, but I was very curious. So what I had to do, of course, was start to Google. And luckily, I was able to find another photograph also taken by Robert Doisneau, apparently on the same day. This is the same shoot, taken from a slightly different angle. So we can see Daniel Pipard, the artist, and we can see his model, the woman, very clearly. Would you like to see the picture? Would you like to see the photograph? Here it is. So basically, she's posing for the painter, but she's not naked. She's wearing a long coat and looks like a dress or a skirt to me. And yet the painter is depicting her as a nude. And so this was the whole idea that Robert Doisneau conceptualized to create this as some sort of bait so that passers-by would stop curious and wonder what's going on here. And the photographer would snap him. Isn't that great? Isn't that just so weird? And interestingly, this is not the only photograph from the same shoot from the same day. There was a second one I found. Look, it's this one right here. And it took me quite a while to realize something about this second image. So we can see everybody here. We can see the woman, we can see the painting, we can see the artist. We can't see the photographer, of course, but we can see these other two passers-by, one with a dog. And I wonder if the same thing, the same question, or if it's occurred to you, the same thing that took a while to occur to me. The question is, wait a minute, is that the same guy in the first picture? Is that the same passerby? I had always assumed that this is an elderly gentleman. But if you look carefully, everything about his attire, and more importantly, everything about his dog, they are the same people. Or rather, he is the same person. That is the same dog. And so if we go back to these 5 questions to answer them once again, there are 2 people in the photograph. There's not. There's a third person if you count her little foot. So the photographer and the painter don't know each other. Well, apparently they did. The painter is smoking a pipe. Well, if you look at this image, it looks like he is smoking a pipe, but he's not. That is just another leg coming from another passerby. But I've had a lot of fun with these questions. Whoops. And if we go to the third one, the painter is painting the view from the bridge. He is not. The curious passerby is in his 20s. I would say he is. I would say he's a Parisian hipster. And finally, the photograph was staged. Yes, again, it was staged. So we've looked at 2 of Robert Doisneau's photographs. Usually are not staged, but in these cases they were. And I wonder what you think about that. I wonder what your students would think about that. And again, let me just show you again a little story of the photograph, which is a text which I have adapted from this one in the book. A group of us had been in a cafe. We were all a bit drunk. There was a painter and a woman with us. The painter was going to paint the woman on the bridge. I suggested that he paint her in a nude to see how passers-by would react. So unlike my other photographs, this one was staged. But what does that mean exactly? There's different ways you could stage a photograph. I don't think it's so wrong to set up bait, let's call it, so that the passers-by stop to take the bait and you take that photograph. That's a standard way to approach humanist photography. On the other hand, if the photographer actually grabbed that passerby and said, would you mind standing there and posing in this way, then it completely would be almost 100% staged. But I would suspect that that's not what happened. I would suspect that they set up the bait and they waited for passersby to stop and take the picture. Who's to say? We can only guess. We can only guess. That's right, we can only guess. Recent 2 lesson plans in the LessonStream membership, and you get access to all 150 lesson plans as soon as you join. Those of you who are present right now in the LessonStream membership, do you think the others should join? What do you think? And you don't get the lesson plans. You don't just get the lesson plans. You also get access to the LessonStream story course, which we've referred to several times in this session, and of course, access to the community. We call ourselves the Fishbowl, and that's the place to make connections, ask about lesson plans, and make new friends. John says yes. John's a member. Hello, John. And yes, this is the price. It's the price of a coffee per week, 1 coffee per week. And importantly, if you're not sure whether or not it's right for you, there's a 3-week money back guarantee. So just let me know within your first 21 days. If it's not for you, money back, no questions asked. Chris is a member. She says 100%. Hannah's a member. She says sure. So it's not just me. These are other teachers. So listen, it's been great to spend this hour with you. Thank you so much for being here. If you wanted to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really wanted to help, I spent a lot of time making and preparing these videos. If you wanted to take the URL and share it in social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, the recording will automatically appear in the next few seconds at the same link. So that would be really helping me. So listen, you have a great weekend. Have a great Friday. Have a lovely time. And thank you again for taking the time to spend this hour with us. And I'll see you the same time, this time next week, when we're going to be looking at possibilities for using images generated by artificial intelligence. All right. Bye-bye for now. Take care. Bye-bye.